much, everyone, for your interest in my talk on where we are in the credit cycle. Perhaps never that I can remember is it more important to discuss this subject because there's so much concern about interest rates, inflation, and recession. Now, the credit cycle spans the spectrum from benign with easy money, low interest rates, low defaults, high recoveries, all the way to crisis. And crisis means extremely high default rates, perhaps more than 10% per year for leveraged finance, high yield bonds, and leveraged loans, and also a big lack of liquidity when you have a crisis. So where we are today is very important. First, let's look at the 5 indicators that I assess to make that assessment. Default rates average around 3% per year for high yield bonds. Today, they are, as of the first half of 2023, about 1.6. So pretty much average. Second, recovery rates. Normally, a bond, when defaults, recovers about 45 cents on the dollar. Today, only 20 cents on the dollar. So there's a big disparity between what investors are willing to pay for distressed debt and what normally they pay during defaults. This indicates some problems for the market going forward. Third, the required rate of return of investors in the risky debt market, which is usually around 5% per year above the risk-free rate. Today, it's only about 4%. So investors do not seem to be too concerned about future defaults, which I think is confusing and incorrect. Fourth, the distress ratio. That is the percent of high yield bonds selling at more than 14% above the 10% above the risk-free rate. And today that's about 14% or more yield to maturity. And finally, liquidity, perhaps the most important, but the most difficult to analyze. Professor Amahood is an expert on this subject, but I also study it in the bond market. And I find that when defaults are high and expected to be higher, liquidity tends to dry up first for the most risky, triple Cs, and then for others. So put it all together and looking at the history of the progression of default rates related to recessions, I am convinced that default rates will go much higher, particularly in 2024 and 2025, when a lot of the new, lot of the old debt becomes due and needs to be paid, as well as the possibility in 2024, not likely in 2023. So my conclusion is we are in an average credit much higher than it was over the last 2 years when default rates were very low. And when I observe this increase from a very low level to an average level with the possibility of a recession, then it triggers to me the outlook for a very high default rate over the next 2 years. Combine that with the huge amount of debt that has been issued over the last 20, 25 years for corporations and also for governments. This could be potentially, although I don't think we're going to reach the crisis level in this next recession, but it is not without a possibility. Thank you very much for your interest in this subject.